A girl, a crowded bar, and a dare she should have said no to. But she didn't, and that 3-second mistake. It changed everything. The bar was loud. People everywhere. Music thumping. Everyone laughing like tomorrow didn't exist. Sophie was at a booth with her 2 best friends, Lily and Jenna. She'd had a rough week. Like a really rough week. The kind that makes you say yes to things you normally wouldn't. Lily raised her glass, Lily to surviving another month. They all cheered. Then Jenna leaned in with that look on her face, that mischief look. Jenna, okay, truth or dare? Sophie, no, absolutely not. Lily, dare. Sophie groaned and finished her drink. Sophie, fine, dare. Jenna's grin spread slow. Jenna, I dare you to kiss the most serious guy in this bar. Sophie followed her gaze. And there he was, standing at the bar, alone, back straight, calm, not on his phone, not watching the game on TV, not talking to anyone, just there, like he didn't belong in a place like this, and like no one would dare tell him that. Sophie, he looks like he might throw me out. Jenna, exactly, that's why. Sophie laughed, but her eyes didn't move from him. He was tall, really tall. Dark shirt that fit perfectly across his chest. Arms that looked like they'd never needed to show off. Sharp jaw, neat hair, alert eyes, not bored, alert. Sophie, this is a terrible idea. Jenna, but you're gonna do it. Sophie finished her drink in one big gulp. Okay, it's just a kiss. She walked toward him. Steady steps, chin up close. He was even bigger than she expected. She had to tilt her head back just to meet his eyes. She didn't give herself time to think. She leaned in and kissed him. 3 seconds, that's all it was. But the moment her lips touched his, something shifted. Not fireworks, not sparks, more like gravity moving a little sideways. She pulled back, already laughing. Already ready to play it off, but he didn't laugh, he didn't move, he didn't even blink, he just looked at her. Gray eyes, cold, focused, like she was a puzzle he needed to solve before he could react. Sophie swallowed. Sophie, you okay? His eyes finally moved to her face. Marcus, you did that on a dare, not a question. Sophie, yeah, just a stupid game. He placed one large hand on the counter beside her, not touching her. Just, close. His other hand stayed relaxed at his side. Marcus, you shouldn't let people push you into things. Sophie lifted her chin. Sophie, I wanted to. Something changed in his face, not a smile, interest. He studied her for a long second. Then he stepped back, giving her space like he'd never blocked it. Marcus, be careful, that was all. Sophie turned and walked back to her friends, heart beating faster than it had any right to. Behind her, Marcus Russo watched her go. And he did not look away. Marcus hadn't come to the bar for company. He was finishing a call when he heard her laugh cut through the noise. It wasn't loud. It wasn't trying to be noticed. It was just real. When she walked toward him, slightly wobbly, but completely determined, he felt the challenge before she ever got close. The kiss surprised him, not the action, the feeling, the warmth. The way she met his eyes after no shame, just curiosity. He watched her for the rest of the night, the way she laughed with her whole body, the way she leaned into her friends when she listened, the way she checked her phone, frowned then smiled, like she'd decided whatever it was could wait. She wasn't calculating. That made her dangerous. Sophie tried to forget the moment. She danced. She laughed. She drank water. She told herself she was imagining things, but every time she glanced at the bar, she felt him before she saw him. Then, at some point, she felt a presence behind her. Marcus, you okay? She turned, startled. He was close. Close enough that she could smell something clean and quiet on him. Not cologne, just him. Sophie, yes, I mean yeah. He nodded, glancing toward her table. Marcus, your friends look like trouble. Sophie, they are. A pause. Marcus. He extended his hand. She hesitated, then took it. His grip was firm, warm in a way that made her aware of her own heartbeat. Sophie. He said her name once, quietly. Something tightened in her chest. Marcus, I didn't take offense. Sophie, I didn't think you did. You looked calm. His mouth curved. Not quite a smile. Marcus, I noticed you didn't ask for my number. Sophie, I noticed you didn't offer it. A beat. Marcus, fair. Her phone buzzed. Lily text. We're leaving now. Sophie sighed. Sophie, I should go. Marcus stepped back immediately. Marcus, of course. She took a few steps, then stopped. Sophie, sorry again. Marcus, for what? Sophie, for kissing you. Marcus, it wasn't a mistake. Her breath caught. She turned and walked away. Marcus watched her leave. The door closed behind her. One thought settled in his mind, clear and certain. This wasn't over, not even close, and Sophie had no idea who she had just kissed, or what he was about to do to make sure he saw her again. Sophie woke up and immediately regretted having lips, not because the kiss had been bad, because it was too easy to remember. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the bar, the dare, Lily chanting, Jenna almost falling off the booth. And then, him, tall enough she had to tip her chin up, broad enough to make the bar stool look tiny. So serious he looked like he'd forgotten how to relax. Sophie, it was a dare. She said it out loud like that would fix it. Her phone buzzed. 3 texts from Jenna. Jenna, I have evidence. You were iconic. Open the video. Sophie, no. She opened it anyway. The video was shaky and loud. She watched herself walk toward the bar with a swagger she didn't remember having. Then she kissed him, pulled back, smiling like it meant nothing, but he didn't smile, he didn't flinch. He just watched her like her face belonged in his memory. Sophie paused the video on his expression. Handsome, sharp, controlled, not friendly. The kind of man who doesn't get teased by strangers in bars. So why didn't he push her away? Why did he look? Interested. She tossed the phone onto the bed and went to shower, trying to rinse the moment off her skin. It didn't wash away. At the office, Sophie made it 3 steps before Lily appeared at her desk with a grin. Lily, good morning, kissing bandit. Sophie, don't. Lily, oh, I'm doing it all day. Jenna popped up from behind the desk divider like she'd been waiting. Jenna, I found him. Sophie's stomach flipped. Sophie, you found him, how? Jenna, I'm talented and I was bored. Jenna held up her phone. A grainy photo of the man from the bar, standing outside a building, dark suit. 2 other men in suits nearby, scanning the street like they were paid to. Sophie, that looks like security. Lily, that looks like money. Jenna zoomed in on the comments. Jenna, someone wrote Mr. Russo. Sophie's throat tightened. Jenna, Marcus Russo. Found him in a charity gala list too. He donated. A lot. Lily, so you kissed a rich, scary man with bodyguards? Sophie, I kissed a stranger. Lily pointed at Sophie's face. Lily, you're blushing. Sophie, I'm not. Jenna smirked. Jenna, it's okay. You're the main character now. Sophie groaned and turned to her computer. Sophie, can we please just work? Lily, fine, but if he texts you, Sophie, he won't. Jenna raised her eyebrows. Jenna, confident. Sophie, very. 30 minutes later, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Sophie froze. The message was just 2 words. Unknown. Sophie Collins. Her heartbeat jumped straight into her throat. Lily leaned over. Lily, who is it? Sophie. Unknown number. Jenna, answer it. Sophie stared at the screen. Sophie, no. Lily, yes. Sophie's thumb hovered, then she typed. Sophie text. Yes, who is this? A pause. Marcus text. Marcus. Sophie's stomach dropped. Lily slapped a hand over her mouth to keep from screaming. Jenna pressed her palms to her cheeks like she was watching a season finale. Sophie text. How did you get my number? Marcus text. I asked. If that was inappropriate, tell me and I'll delete it. I won't contact you again. Sophie stared at those words. That wasn't pushy, that wasn't arrogant. It was respectful in a way that somehow made it worse, because it meant he was careful. Sophie text. Why are you texting me? Marcus text. Because I didn't like the idea of never seeing you again. She stared at those words until they almost blurred. Lily mouthed, oh my God. Jenna mouthed, he's serious. Sophie forced herself to breathe. Sophie text, what do you want? Marcus text, one dinner. If you're not interested after that, it ends. No pressure. Her pulse raced. Lily whispered, "Say yes for the plot." Sophie shot her a look, then typed, "Sophie text, where?" Lily's eyes lit up like fireworks. Marcus text, "Tomorrow, 7, somewhere quiet." Sophie text, "I'll meet you, no car." Marcus text, "Understood. I'll send the address. Thank you, Sophie. Thank you." That word sat in her chest all day. The next evening, Sophie changed outfits 3 times, not to impress him. Because she didn't want to look like the girl who turned drunk dares into life choices. She settled on a fitted black dress, a coat that made her look put together, and boots she could actually walk in. Lily watched from the couch like a proud stage mom. "Lily, you're nervous. Sophie, I'm not." Jenna handed her a glass of water. "Jenna, hydrate. Men like that are dehydrating." "Sophie, what does that even mean?" "Jenna, you'll find out." Lily stood and adjusted Sophie's collar. "Lily, rules." "Sophie, rules." Lily held up a finger. "Lily, bad vibe, you leave, no guilt." "Jenna, if he's rude, you tell him you don't date men who act like happiness is embarrassing." Sophie snorted. "Lily, if he tries to buy your attention, stay unimpressed." Jenna's voice softened. "Jenna, but if he's actually kind, don't punish him for being intense." Sophie paused, then grabbed her bag. "Sophie, I'm leaving before you both hypnotize me." The restaurant was elegant, but not loud. Warm lighting, quiet music, people talking in low voices. When Sophie gave her name at the door, the host's expression shifted just slightly. Like her name meant something. "Host, Miss Collins, right this way." She followed him to the back, noticed 2 men near the entrance. Dark suits, not eating, just watching the room. Security, it's a fancy place. Calm down. Then she saw Marcus. He stood when she approached. In calmer lighting, he looked even bigger than he had at the bar. His suit fit perfectly across shoulders that seemed too wide for normal life. His face was controlled, serious, but his eyes softened when they landed on her. "Marcus, Sophie." Hearing her name from his mouth made her stomach flutter. "Sophie, Marcus." He pulled out her chair, waited until she sat, then sat across from her. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Sophie broke first. "Sophie, this place is nice." Marcus, quiet. "Sophie, you like quiet." Marcus, "I like hearing what matters." Her throat tightened. "Sophie, okay, real question." Marcus, "Ask." "Sophie, why did you text me?" Marcus, "Because I kept thinking about you, and I don't like unfinished things." "Sophie, it was a dare." Marcus's eyes narrowed just slightly, not angry, focused. Marcus, was it only a dare? Sophie opened her mouth, then closed it because she wasn't sure. The waiter came. Sophie ordered sparkling water. Marcus ordered water too. "Sophie, no wine." Marcus, "I don't like being less aware." "Sophie, of what? Someone stealing your dessert?" His mouth twitched. Marcus, "Possibly." She laughed, then stopped, realizing he wasn't entirely joking. Sophie leaned forward. "Sophie, people here seem to know you." Marcus, "They do." Sophie, "Those men at the entrance." Marcus, "They're here to keep the night calm." Sophie, "Because of you." Marcus, "Because I prefer control." Sophie swallowed. "Sophie, what do you do?" Marcus, "Marcus, I run businesses." Sophie, "That's vague." Marcus, "Yes." Sophie, "I don't like vague." Marcus, "Then ask what you're really asking." Sophie's breath caught. She lowered her voice. "Sophie, are you dangerous?" Marcus stayed completely calm. Marcus, "I can be." Sophie's stomach tightened. Marcus, "But not with you." That line hit harder than it should have. "Sophie, you don't even know me." Marcus, "That's why I asked you here." Sophie's voice softened without permission. "Sophie, to study me." Marcus, "To understand why you did it." Sophie, "Why I kissed you." Marcus, "Yes." Sophie held his gaze, then said the truth before she could stop herself. "Sophie, because I wasn't scared." Marcus went completely still. Sophie's cheeks warmed. "Sophie, I was curious." The air between them tightened. Dinner continued, but something had shifted. Marcus asked real questions about her life, her work, her values. Sophie answered honestly, surprised by how safe it felt to be listened to like she mattered. When they stepped outside, the cold air hit Sophie's cheeks, but her body still felt warm. Marcus stopped under a streetlight and looked at her. "Marcus, Now I ask if I can kiss you again. Sophie's heart jumped. Sophie, this isn't a dare, this is a choice. Marcus, I've been thinking about it since you walked away. Sophie nodded before she overthought it. Marcus stepped closer slowly, his hand lifted to her cheek. Stopped just short, waiting. Sophie, yes. His palm cupped her face, warm, gentle, careful, then he kissed her. Slow, controlled, deep enough to make her knees soften. When he pulled back, he didn't let go right away. Marcus, you're shaking. Sophie, I'm not. Marcus, you are. Sophie, so are you. Marcus went still. For a second, he looked almost exposed. Marcus, yes. His phone buzzed, he ignored it, it buzzed again. He checked it, his jaw tightened, his eyes turned colder. Sophie, everything okay? Marcus, yes. Sophie didn't believe him. His gaze flicked down the street, quick, sharp, then back to her. Marcus, I want to see you again. Sophie, when? Marcus, soon. Sophie frowned. Sophie, vague again. Marcus reached into his jacket and handed her a plain card. No logo, no title. Just his name and a number. Marcus Russo. Sophie stared at it. Sophie, what are you, Marcus? Marcus, if I tell you, will you let me finish before you decide what you think of me? Sophie's heart pounded. Then a black car rolled slowly to the curb across the street, stopping like it had been waiting. The passenger window lowered halfway. A man in a suit looked out, eyes flicking to Sophie, then to Marcus. Marcus didn't move, but the air changed. Man in car. Mr. Russo, we need a word. Marcus's hand slid behind Sophie, not touching her, just a shield made of pure presence. His eyes stayed on hers. Marcus, 1 minute. Then quietly, Marcus, this is exactly what I was trying to warn you about. Sophie clutched the card. Heart racing, because suddenly she wasn't just curious anymore. She was standing close to a world that clearly knew Marcus Russo's name. And now it had noticed hers too. Sophie didn't move. She stood under the streetlight, Marcus's card in her fingers. Her heart pounding so hard it felt loud. Across the street, the black car kept idling, like it belonged there. Sophie looked up at Marcus. He looked calm. Too calm. Like this wasn't a surprise, just an interruption. Sophie, warn me about what? Marcus, about my life touching yours. Sophie, are they following you? Marcus, they're waiting. That word didn't help. Waiting sounded planned. Sophie, who are they? Marcus's jaw tightened. For the first time, Sophie saw hesitation in him, like he was deciding how much truth she could handle without running. Then he did something that surprised her. He reached out gently and took her wrist, just enough to guide her a few steps away from the streetlight. Closer to the building wall, not dramatic, not forceful, just quiet and protective, he let go the moment they moved. Marcus, you can leave right now. No questions, no explanations. I'll understand. Sophie, you're giving me an exit. Marcus, yes. Sophie, why? Marcus, because if you stay, it has to be your choice. Her pulse jumped. She hated that those words made her feel respected instead of scared. Sophie glanced at the car. The man inside didn't look angry. He looked professional. Sophie, are you in trouble? Marcus, no. Sophie, then why do you look like you're deciding whether to lie to me? Marcus exhaled slowly. Marcus, I don't want you to be afraid of me. Sophie's voice came out softer than she meant it to. Sophie, I'm not afraid of you. Marcus went still, like those words landed somewhere deep. Marcus, you should be cautious. Sophie, cautious isn't the same as afraid. Marcus nodded once. Like he accepted the correction, the man in the car spoke again, more urgent now. Man in car, Mr. Russo, please. Marcus didn't look away from Sophie when he answered. Marcus, I said, 1 minute. The window rolled up halfway, like that was agreement. Sophie, they call you Mr. Russo. Marcus, yes. Sophie, Marcus Russo is your real name. Marcus, it is. Sophie looked down at the card, then back up. Sophie, and you run businesses. She said it with a slight edge. Marcus leaned closer, lowering his voice. Marcus, if I tell you too much too soon, you'll either panic or feel like you have to be brave. I don't want either. Sophie, then what do you want? Marcus, I want to take you home safely. Then I want to see you again when you've had time to think. Sophie's heart skipped. She should have said no. She should have stepped back. Instead, she asked, Sophie, will you see me again? Marcus's expression shifted. Something softer, Something almost relieved. Marcus, yes, if you allow it. Sophie stared at him, caught between common sense and the way his calm felt like a shelter. Marcus glanced toward the car, then back. Marcus, I have to speak with them, but I'm not leaving you alone out here. Sophie, so what, your bodyguards will escort me? Marcus's mouth twitched. Marcus, they aren't my bodyguards. That landed wrong. Sophie's stomach tightened. Sophie, then what are they? Marcus didn't answer. He typed one quick message on his phone, slid it back in his pocket. Marcus, give me 30 seconds. Sophie nodded. Marcus walked across the street toward the car. Same steady pace as always, like the night belonged to him. Sophie watched him go. The strangest thought crossed her mind. He didn't look like a man who feared anyone. He looked like a man people feared. That should have sent her running. Instead, it made her more curious. Her phone buzzed. Lily text, "Did you die?" Jenna text, "Send details or we're calling someone." Sophie stared at the screen, then looked back at Marcus leaning into the car window, talking quietly. His face stayed calm, but his jaw was tight. 30 seconds turned into a minute. Sophie paced 2 small steps, stopped, forced herself to breathe. When Marcus finally stepped back from the car, the window rolled up. The car stayed, idling. Marcus walked back toward her. His eyes found hers immediately. Marcus, you're still here. Sophie lifted her chin. Sophie, I said I wasn't afraid. Marcus, you're stubborn. Sophie, maybe. Or maybe I just don't like unanswered questions. Marcus stopped close enough that she could feel the warmth of him again. Marcus, then here's an answer. Sophie's breath caught. Marcus, I won't let anything happen to you. It didn't sound like a dramatic promise. It sounded like a rule. Sophie, you can't guarantee that. Marcus, I can guarantee what I control. Sophie stared at him. A shiver ran through her. Not fear, exactly. More like the thrill of standing close to something powerful. Sophie, are they going to keep waiting? Marcus, not after I leave. Sophie, and you're leaving with me. Marcus, only if you want me to. Sophie hesitated. The sensible part of her screamed that this was insane. But the other part, the part that felt seen, wanted, chosen, was louder. Sophie, I want to go home. Marcus, okay. Sophie, how? Marcus, walking. Sophie, walking. Marcus, you live 3 blocks from here. Sophie stared at him. Sophie, how do you know where I live? Marcus, because I needed to know I could get you home safely. Sophie's pulse spiked. Sophie, Marcus, that's... He raised one hand, not to silence her, just to slow the moment. Marcus, I know it sounds like a lot. I'm not proud of it, but I wasn't going to let you step out alone after that car pulled up. Sophie's throat tightened. His honesty didn't erase it, but it also didn't feel like a game. Sophie, you can't keep doing things without telling me. Marcus, you're right. Sophie blinked. Surprised, Marcus, so tell me what you need. Sophie searched his face, looking for arrogance, irritation. Manipulation. She found none. Just control, and under it, patience. Sophie, I need clarity. I need to know what I'm stepping into, and I need to know if you're interested in me or in the idea of me. Marcus, I'm interested in you. Sophie's breath caught. Marcus, the idea of you doesn't kiss back. The idea of you doesn't look at me like I'm human. Sophie's chest tightened. She tried to steady herself with humor. Sophie, I don't know you well enough to know if you're human. Marcus, that's why I want another dinner. Sophie, another one. Marcus, yes, if you'll let me. Sophie, what happens at this next dinner? Marcus, I tell you the truth. Sophie, all of it. Marcus, enough. Sophie nodded slowly. Sophie, okay. Marcus, okay. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Marcus lifted his hand, stopped just short of her cheek. Waiting. Sophie, you can. His palm brushed her cheek. His thumb traced the edge of her jaw, like he was memorizing her again. Then he kissed her, not as deep as before, more like a promise. When he pulled back, he stayed close. Marcus, I don't want to rush you. Sophie, you're not. Marcus, that's the problem. Sophie, what problem? Marcus, the more time I spend with you, the less control I want. Sophie's stomach fluttered hard. She forced a small smile. Sophie, that sounds like your personal issue. Marcus, it is. They walked. Marcus stayed on the street side of the sidewalk, close enough that Sophie could feel his presence. Not crowded, not possessive, just there. He didn't grab her hand. He didn't touch her waist. He just walked beside her like he belonged there. Sophie, so you really don't drink? Marcus, I drink. Just not when I'm with someone I'm trying to be careful with. Sophie's cheeks warmed. Sophie, be careful with me. Marcus, yes. Sophie, what does careful look like to you? Marcus, not lying, not rushing, not pretending I'm harmless. Sophie, you're not harmless. Marcus, no. They reached her building. Sophie stopped at the entrance, keys in hand, suddenly aware of how intimate this felt. Him at her door, in her world, where nothing was guarded. Marcus didn't step closer. He kept a respectful distance. Marcus, I'll go. Sophie, that's it. Marcus, if I step inside, I won't want to leave. Sophie tried to tease him. Sophie, you're very dramatic for a man who hates drama. Marcus, I'm honest. Sophie stared at him. Heat rising under her skin. Sophie, when do I see you again? Marcus, tomorrow. He pulled out his phone. Typed quickly, held it out so she could see. A message draft. Not yet sent. Marcus, draft tomorrow, 7:00 p.m. My home, I'll answer everything. If you want to leave at any moment, you leave, no pressure. Sophie stared at the words. His home, not a restaurant, not a public place, a private space. The sensible part of her whispered, this is too fast. The other part whispered, this is exactly where the truth lies. Sophie, your home. Marcus, yes. Because if I tell you the truth in public, it won't stay private. Sophie swallowed. Then nodded once. Sophie, okay. Marcus didn't smile like he'd won. He looked like he'd been given something fragile and intended to protect it. He hit send. Sophie's phone buzzed immediately. Marcus, good night, Sophie. Sophie, good night. Marcus, lock your door. Sophie's stomach tightened. Sophie, why? Marcus, because I don't like leaving anything to chance. He stepped back, but before he turned away, he looked at her one last time. Marcus and Sophie, if you come tomorrow, your life won't feel simple anymore. Sophie's breath caught. Marcus turned and walked away into the night, controlled, steady. Sophie stood frozen at her doorway. Keys in hand, cold air on her cheeks, heart racing, not with fear, with the realization that this was no longer a flirtation. It was a choice, and Marcus Russo was already choosing her in ways that would soon force the rest of his world to react. She just didn't know how loudly yet. Sophie didn't sleep much that night. She locked her door like Marcus told her to, then stood there with her hand still on the knob. Listening to the quiet of her apartment like it might answer her questions. Nothing happened. No footsteps in the hall. No mysterious sounds. No reason for her heart to keep beating the way it did. And yet, when she finally lay down, her mind refused to slow. Tomorrow, 7. His home. She stared at the ceiling, replaying the way he'd said it. Not inviting, not demanding. Just stating a fact and leaving the choice in her hands. That was the part she couldn't ignore. Marcus never pushed. He waited. Somehow that made everything feel heavier. The next day dragged. Sophie went through her routine on autopilot. Worked, smiled, answered emails. Walked through a venue with a client who complained about chair colors. She nodded and took notes while her mind stayed somewhere else. Lily noticed. Lily, you're quiet. Sophie, am I? Jenna, quiet like someone who's about to walk into a very interesting mistake. Sophie shot her a look. Jenna, encouraging. Lily, are you really going to his house? Sophie, yes. Jenna's eyes widened. Jenna, wow. Lily studied Sophie's face carefully. Lily, are you scared? Sophie thought about it. Sophie, no, I'm aware. Lily, that's different. Jenna, that's worse. Sophie laughed, but the knot in her chest didn't loosen. By the time she got home, the sky was already dark. She stood in front of her closet longer than she should have. Not trying to look seductive, not trying to impress. She chose comfort with intention, soft fabric, clean lines, something that felt like her. If Marcus was going to tell her the truth, she wanted to hear it as herself, not as a performance. At 6:45, her phone buzzed. Marcus text, I'm downstairs, downstairs, not outside, not honking. Downstairs. Sophie took one last look in the mirror. Then headed out. Marcus stood by a black SUV at the curb, hands in his pockets, posture relaxed but alert. He looked different tonight, not dressed for a restaurant, not dressed to impress, comfortable, confident. Like this was his territory. His eyes found her immediately. Marcus, Sophie, Sophie, Marcus. He opened the door for her, waited until she was seated, closed it gently, then walked around to the driver's side. He was driving himself. That surprised her. The ride was quiet, but not awkward. Streetlights passed in a steady rhythm as they moved deeper into the city, then slowly out of it. Less traffic, wider streets, quieter neighborhoods. Sophie, where are we going? Marcus, Brooklyn Heights. Sophie, nice area. Marcus, yes. The building he pulled up to wasn't flashy. No gates, no guards at the door. Just a renovated brownstone with warm lights glowing behind tall windows. Marcus parked and turned off the engine. He looked at her before getting out. Marcus, you can still change your mind. Sophie, I know. He nodded, then stepped out and opened her door. Inside his world inside, the space felt lived in, not cold, not intimidating. Clean lines, neutral colors, soft lighting, art on the walls that looked chosen, not bought in bulk. A quiet strength to the place like the man who lived there. Sophie took it in slowly. Sophie, this is not what I expected. Marcus, what did you expect? Sophie, I don't know, something darker. Marcus, I spend enough time in the dark outside of here. That sentence landed heavier than it sounded. He gestured toward the living room. Marcus, can I get you something? Water, tea? Sophie, water's fine. He handed her a glass, then leaned against the counter, giving her space. Sophie took a sip, set the glass down carefully. Sophie, okay, you said you'd tell me the truth. Marcus, I did. Sophie, so tell me. Marcus crossed the room slowly and sat across from her, elbows resting loosely on his knees, looking at her like he was measuring honesty, not control. Marcus, my life isn't legal in the way most people expect. Sophie held her breath. Marcus, I run organizations that exist in the gray. Some of them are legitimate, some of them are not. Sophie, you're a criminal. Marcus, I am a businessman who grew up in a world where the rules were different. Sophie, that's still a yes. Marcus, yes. Sophie, and the men in the car. Marcus, people who work for me. People who make sure problems don't reach my door. Sophie, and violence. Marcus, I don't enjoy it. I avoid it when possible. I don't bring it home. Sophie searched his face for excuses, for lies. She found none. Sophie and me, where do I fit in that world? Marcus, you don't. That surprised her. Sophie, you don't want me to. Marcus, no. I want you far away from it. Sophie's voice wavered. Sophie, then why involve me at all? Marcus exhaled slowly. Marcus, because I noticed you, and once I did, pretending I didn't would have been dishonest. Sophie hugged her arms around herself. Sophie, so this, us, is a mistake. Marcus, it's a risk. Sophie, there's a difference. Marcus, yes, and I'm willing to take it, but only if you are. Sophie stood. Walked to the window, staring out at the quiet street below. Sophie, this is a lot. Marcus, I know. Sophie turned back to him. Sophie, why me, Marcus? He rose slowly, stopped a few feet away. Marcus, because you don't want anything from me. Because you look at me like I'm not just what I do. Because you kissed me without trying to take anything. Sophie's chest tightened. Marcus, and because you make me want something different. Silence stretched between them, heavy but calm. Sophie laughed softly, more breath than sound. Sophie, you're not exactly the safe choice. Marcus, no. Sophie, you don't act like someone who takes what he wants. Marcus, I don't. I choose. Sophie, and you're choosing me. Marcus, yes. Sophie's heart hammered. Sophie, what happens if this goes badly? Marcus, then I walk away. Sophie, that easily. Marcus, no, but completely. Sophie nodded slowly. She stepped closer, stopping just short of him. Sophie, I need one promise. Marcus, name it. Sophie, no lies. If I ask, you answer. Marcus agreed. Sophie searched his eyes one last time. Then she reached out and took his hand. not because she was sure. Because she wasn't, Marcus's fingers tightened around hers, gentle but firm, like he understood the weight of that choice. Sophie, okay. Marcus, okay. Sophie, I'll stay, for now. Marcus lifted her hand and pressed a slow kiss to her knuckles. Marcus, thank you. The intimacy of that small gesture sent a shiver through her. Marcus, may I kiss you? Sophie nodded. This kiss was different, slower, deeper, more honest, no rush, no hunger that overwhelmed, just connection. His hand warm at her waist, hers resting lightly against his chest, feeling the steady strength beneath. When they pulled apart, Sophie rested her forehead against his. Sophie, this doesn't feel dangerous. Marcus, that's what worries me. Sophie smiled faintly. Sophie, you're allowed to want something good. Somewhere in the apartment, a phone buzzed. Marcus stiffened. Just slightly, not dramatically, just enough for Sophie to feel it. He pulled back slightly, jaw tightening. Sophie, is that important? Marcus glanced toward the sound, then back to her. Marcus, yes, and inconvenient. Sophie, does it change anything? Marcus, not tonight, but soon. Sophie frowned. Sophie, soon what? Marcus lifted his hand, brushing her cheek gently. Marcus, soon someone will notice I'm distracted. Sophie, and when they do, Marcus, they'll want to know why. Sophie held his gaze, heart racing. Sophie, and what will you tell them? Marcus's eyes darkened, steady and certain. Marcus, that you matter. Those words settled heavily between them. Not romantic, protective. And for the first time since she met him, Sophie realized the truth wasn't just that Marcus lived a dangerous life. It was that caring about her might be the most dangerous thing he'd done yet. The morning after, again Sophie woke up the next morning with the quiet certainty that something in her life had shifted. Not in a dramatic, world-ending way, in a subtle, irreversible one. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the night before, not just Marcus's words, but the way he said them, calm, honest, unrushed. Like he wasn't trying to convince her of anything, just offering the truth and letting her decide what to do with it. That had never happened to her before. Usually, men try to sell themselves. Marcus didn't sell, he revealed. Her phone buzzed softly. Marcus text, "Good morning." Sophie smiled before she could stop herself. She stared at the message for a moment, then typed back, Sophie text, "You're awake early." Marcus text, "I'm always awake early." She imagined him already dressed, already controlled, already 10 steps ahead of the day. That image made her feel warm instead of intimidated. Sophie text, "Did you sleep?" A pause. Marcus text, "Better than usual." That one line tightened something in her chest. Growing closer over the next few days, something unexpected happened. They didn't rush. Marcus didn't flood her with messages. He didn't demand time, he didn't show up unannounced. He texted once in the morning, once at night. Sometimes just a single line, sometimes a question that made her think. Did you eat? What made you laugh today? Are you tired? No flirting dressed up as interest. Just attention. Sophie found herself looking forward to those messages, more than she wanted to admit. At work, Lily noticed immediately. Lily, you're smiling at your phone. Sophie looked up too quickly. Sophie, I am not. Jenna, you absolutely are, and it's not your mom. Sophie sighed. Sophie, it's Marcus. Both women froze. Lily's grin spread slowly. Lily, oh, this is serious. Sophie, how do you know? Lily, because when you talk about him, you don't joke. You soften. Sophie didn't argue. That scared her a little. Dinner at his place, round 2, their next dinner wasn't at a restaurant. It was at Marcus's place again. This time, Sophie arrived without the knot in her stomach. Not because she trusted everything about him, but because she trusted the way he treated her. Marcus opened the door, dressed simply, sleeves rolled up, looking more like a man at home than a man in control. Marcus, you're early. Sophie, you don't seem like someone who minds. Marcus, I don't. Dinner was simple. No staff, no spectacle. Marcus cooked. That alone surprised her. Sophie, you cook. Marcus, it keeps my hands busy. Sophie, and your mind. Marcus looked at her. Marcus, sometimes. They ate at the kitchen counter, close but not touching, talking about ordinary things. Sophie's work, a client who drove her insane. A story about Jenna getting lost in Brooklyn for 3 hours. Marcus listened like every detail mattered. When Sophie laughed, he watched her like it was something rare. At one point, she noticed his phone face down on the counter. It buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again. Sophie, you don't have to ignore that because of me. Marcus, I want to. That sentence landed softly, but deeply. As the evening settled, they moved to the couch. Marcus sat close enough that their shoulders brushed. Sophie felt the warmth of him immediately, steady, grounding. Sophie, can I ask you something? Marcus, yes. Sophie, what happens when people in your world get attached? Marcus exhaled slowly. Marcus, they become vulnerable. Sophie, and you? Marcus, I don't get attached. The honesty stung a little. Then he continued, Marcus, until now. Sophie's breath caught. Marcus, this is new for me, Sophie, and I don't pretend it isn't. Sophie, does that scare you? Marcus, yes. That one word made her trust him more than any reassurance ever could. She shifted closer, resting her hand lightly on his forearm. Marcus went still, not pulling away, not leaning in, just feeling it. Sophie, I don't want to be a weakness. Marcus's gaze sharpened not with anger, but conviction. Marcus, you're not. You're a reason. Sophie, a reason for what? Marcus, for change. Sophie, that's a big word. Marcus, I don't use it lightly. Silence settled between them. Then Marcus leaned back slightly and said something she didn't expect. Marcus, there are parts of my life I'm already stepping away from. Sophie blinked. Sophie, because of me. Marcus, because I don't want to be the man who brings chaos to your door. Sophie, you don't have to rearrange your life for me. Marcus, I want to. That scared her more than anything else he'd said. Sophie, Marcus, people don't usually change for someone they just met. Marcus, I didn't just meet you. Sophie frowned. Sophie, what does that mean? Marcus, it means that when you kissed me, you reminded me of who I was before everything else took over. Sophie's throat tightened. She leaned into him without thinking, resting her head against his shoulder. Marcus's arm came around her slowly, deliberately, like he was asking permission even after she'd already chosen. She sighed softly, melting into the contact. This felt intimate, not heated, not reckless, just right. Later, when he walked her to the door, Sophie hesitated. Sophie, I don't want to rush. Marcus, neither do I. Sophie, but I don't want to pretend this isn't real either. Marcus's thumb brushed her hand gently. Marcus, I'm not pretending. Sophie smiled faintly. Sophie, good. She leaned in and kissed him, soft. Lingering, sure. Marcus responded with restraint that somehow made it more intense, like he was choosing every movement carefully. When they pulled apart, his forehead rested against hers. Marcus, you matter to me. Sophie swallowed. Sophie, I know. Marcus looked surprised. Marcus, you do. Sophie, because you show it, not with words, with space, with honesty. Marcus exhaled slowly, like he hadn't realized how much he needed to hear that. As Sophie stepped into the hallway, she turned back. Sophie, Marcus, yes, Sophie, what happens next? Marcus met her gaze, serious, calm. Marcus, next, I make sure the life I'm building has room for you. Sophie, and if it doesn't? Marcus, then I build a different one. The door closed softly behind her. Sophie leaned against it. Heart pounding, not with fear, with the realization that this was no longer a flirtation. It was a choice. And Marcus Russo was already choosing her in ways that would soon force the rest of his world to react. She just didn't know how loudly yet. Almost normal Sophie tried to act normal for the next 2 days. She answered emails. She smiled at clients. She listened to Lily complain about a bridesmaid who wanted winter decor in Florida. She even laughed when Jenna sent a meme that said, when the mysterious man you kissed turns out to be your future husband. But normal didn't fit anymore. Because Marcus Russo had said, then I build a different one. And Sophie couldn't stop hearing it. Not because it sounded romantic, because it sounded like a decision already in motion. The third morning, her phone buzzed. Marcus text, "Can I see you tonight?" Sophie stared at the message. Sophie text, "Yes, are you okay?" A pause. Marcus text, "I'm fine. I just need you close." Those 7 words. I just need you close, not dramatic, not needy, direct, grounded, and somehow more intense than anything softer could have been. Sophie swallowed, then typed, Sophie text, "Where?" Marcus text, "Your choice. I'll come to you or you come here." 2 choices. Always choices with him. Sophie text, "Come to me. I want to show you my world for once." Marcus text, "I'd like that." Sophie slipped her phone into her pocket. Heart thudding, she walked into the office and Lily immediately narrowed her eyes. "Lily, you're glowing. Sophie, I am not." Jenna appeared beside Lily like a matching detective. "Jenna, you are. It's disgusting. What happened?" "Sophie, Marcus is coming to my apartment tonight." Lily froze. "Lily, he's entering the real world." "Sophie, it's not that dramatic." "Jenna, wait, your apartment." "Sophie, yes." Lily pointed at Sophie with full confidence. "Lily, men like that don't walk into a small apartment and not mentally replace every piece of furniture." "Sophie, he's not like that." "Jenna, you say that now." At 6:50, Sophie lit the one candle she owned that wasn't embarrassing. At 6:55, she regretted the candle. It smelled like vanilla ambition. At 7 sharp, a knock, not loud, not hesitant, just certain. Sophie took a breath. Opened the door, and there he was. Marcus stood in the hallway like he didn't belong in it, too big for the narrow space. Too calm for the cheap lighting, too controlled for the chaos of her building, dark sweater, sleeves pushed up. Watch catching the light. His eyes found hers immediately. Marcus, Sophie. Hearing her name in her own doorway made her chest tighten. "Sophie, Marcus, come in." He didn't rush inside. He paused at the threshold like he was respecting the invisible line between his world and hers. Then he entered. He looked around slowly, not judging, observing. Sophie's apartment was small but warm. Framed photos, a bookshelf with romance novels and cookbooks, a bowl of keys by the door, a throw blanket on the couch that had seen better days. Marcus's gaze lingered on the photos. Sophie immediately felt self-conscious. "Sophie, it's not much. Marcus, it's yours." That simple sentence settled her nerves more than any compliment could have. "Sophie, do you want water? Tea? I don't have expensive stuff like at your place." "Marcus, tea is fine." Sophie moved to the kitchen, filled the kettle, glanced over her shoulder. Marcus stood near her bookshelf, staring at her row of novels. "Marcus, you read these." Sophie's cheeks warmed. "Sophie, yes." Marcus picked one up carefully, reading the back cover like it was a serious document. Sophie watched him amused. "Sophie, don't judge me." "Marcus, I'm not judging." A pause. "Marcus, I'm learning." "Sophie, learning what?" "Marcus, what you like." Sophie's throat tightened. She turned back to the kettle like it was suddenly urgent. When the tea was ready, they sat on her couch, close enough that Sophie could feel the heat of him. Marcus held the mug like he wasn't used to holding something small. Sophie tried not to stare at his hands. It was hard. "Sophie, so how does it feel to be in a normal apartment?" Marcus glanced around. "Marcus, it feels quiet." "Sophie, your place is quiet too." "Marcus, not like this." "Sophie, what's the difference?" "Marcus, this quiet feels safe." Sophie swallowed. She wasn't sure what to say to that, so she asked the question that had been sitting in her chest since his text. "Sophie, you said you needed me close. Why?" "Marcus, I have a decision to finalize." "Sophie, about what?" "Marcus, about stepping away from parts of my life." Sophie's breath caught. "Marcus, I told you I'd build a different life. I meant it." "Sophie, that's huge." "Marcus, yes, and it's not simple." "Sophie, are you doing this because you think you have to?" "Marcus, no." "Sophie, then why?" "Marcus, because when I'm with you, I remember what peace feels like." Sophie's throat tightened. She reached for humor. "Sophie, so I'm your therapist now." "Marcus, no." "Sophie, then what am I?" Marcus looked at her for a long moment, choosing words that could change everything. "Marcus, you're the only place I don't feel divided." Sophie's breath caught. She scooted closer without meaning to, letting her shoulder brush his. Marcus's body went still for half a second. Then he relaxed into it, like it was allowed. Sophie whispered, "Sophie, that's a lot." "Marcus, I know." "Sophie, and what happens after you step away?" "Marcus, I become a man with fewer enemies." Sophie stiffened. "Sophie, enemies, Marcus, not the kind you're imagining. I'm not in the middle of a war, Sophie." Sophie exhaled, relieved but still tense. "Marcus, but I am watched. And when I change my behavior, people ask why." "Sophie, because of me." Marcus didn't deny it. "Marcus, yes, Sophie, I don't want to be a target." Marcus's eyes darkened, steady and protective. "Marcus, you won't be, Sophie. You can't control everything." "Marcus, I can control who gets access to you." That sentence should have been scary. Instead, it made her feel held, and that scared her more. Sophie leaned back, studying him. "Sophie, so what's the plan?" "Marcus, tomorrow I have a meeting." "Sophie, with who?" Marcus paused. "Marcus, my family." Sophie went still, not because she was afraid of the word, because she could hear what it meant. A world with rules she didn't know, people who expected obedience, people who might not like change. "Sophie, what kind of meeting?" "Marcus, a formal one." Sophie stared at him. "Sophie, are you telling me this because you want me to know or because you want me to help you?" "Marcus, both." "Sophie, help you how?" Marcus turned toward her fully, his presence filling the couch. "Marcus, by being real, by being here, by reminding me what I'm choosing." Sophie's chest tightened. "Sophie, and what exactly are you choosing?" Marcus's eyes locked on hers. "Marcus, you." Sophie's heart pounded so hard she felt dizzy. She stared at him, searching for manipulation. There was none, just certainty. "Sophie, Dominic, what happens if this goes?" She caught herself. "Sophie, Marcus, what happens if this goes wrong?" "Marcus, then you walk away." Sophie's eyes burned suddenly. She didn't want that option to exist. She hated that it had to. "Sophie, okay." She whispered it. "Sophie, I believe you." Marcus's expression softened, like she had loosened something tight in his chest. He leaned in slowly. Giving her time, Sophie closed the space first, kissing him. This kiss wasn't cautious. It was warm and real, built from days of restraint and late-night texts, and the tension of knowing they were balancing on the edge of something serious. Marcus's hand slid to her waist, firm but gentle, pulling her closer like he couldn't help it anymore. Sophie's fingers gripped his sweater. He tasted like tea and control and something deeper. Something that made her body relax against him, as if it recognized safety in him. When they pulled apart, Sophie's breath came fast. Marcus's forehead rested against hers. "Marcus, Sophie, tell me you're still sure." "Sophie, I'm still here." "Marcus, that's not the same." "Sophie, I'm sure enough to keep choosing you." Marcus exhaled slow and heavy, like that was the exact answer he needed. He kissed her again, softer this time, then leaned back slightly. Sophie blinked, catching her breath. "Sophie, so tomorrow you meet your family, and they'll ask why you're changing." "Marcus, yes." "Sophie, and what will you tell them?" "Marcus, that I'm done living only for duty." "Sophie, and they'll accept that." Marcus's mouth curved faintly. "Marcus, they won't have a choice." Sophie let out a small laugh. "Sophie, that's the most Mafia boss thing you've said all week." Marcus's eyes warmed slightly. "Marcus, I'm trying to be gentle with you." Sophie touched his jaw lightly. "Sophie, you are." Marcus went still at her touch, then leaned into it like he couldn't help himself. "Sophie, do you want me to come with you tomorrow?" "Marcus, no." Sophie blinked. "Marcus, not yet. I won't bring you into that room until I'm certain you'll never feel trapped." "Sophie, you think I'd feel trapped with you?" "Marcus, I think you'd feel trapped by what people would expect of you." Sophie swallowed. He was right, and the fact that he cared about that more than what he wanted made her trust him even more. His phone buzzed, face down on her coffee table. He didn't reach for it. "Sophie, is that the meeting?" "Marcus, yes, they want me there earlier." "Sophie, that's bad." "Marcus, it means they're impatient." "Sophie, because you're distracted." "Marcus, yes." Sophie took a breath. "Sophie, Marcus, what's the worst that happens?" "Marcus, the worst is that they try to control the future I'm choosing." Sophie, and can they? Marcus, not if I move first. Sophie's pulse raced. Sophie, move first. How? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he looked at her, calm, intense. Marcus, I want you to stay with me. Sophie froze. Sophie, stay with you like tonight. Marcus shook his head slightly. Marcus, I mean for real. Sophie's heart slammed against her ribs. Move in? That was what he meant. She could hear it in his tone. Sophie stared at him, mouth slightly open. Marcus, not because I want to rush you. Because I want to protect what we're building. Sophie, Marcus, that's a lot. Marcus, I know. Sophie's hands trembled slightly. She pressed them together in her lap. Her apartment suddenly felt too small for the weight of that question. Marcus reached out and took her hand gently. Marcus, you don't have to answer now. But I needed to say it. Sophie, why now? Marcus, because tomorrow I may have to prove what you are to me. Sophie's stomach dropped. Sophie, prove? Marcus, I may have to say your name out loud in a room where people don't get to know you. And once I do that, it becomes real to them. Sophie's heartbeat thundered. Marcus tightened his grip, gentle but firm. Marcus, I won't do it without your consent, but I need to know if you're willing to step forward with me. Sophie stared at him, mind racing. Move in, be named, be real in his world. Sophie, Marcus, I care about you. Marcus, I know. Sophie, and I want to be with you. Marcus, then let me build this right. Sophie opened her mouth, then closed it, trying to find a sentence that didn't feel too small. Marcus watched her carefully, patient, steady. Sophie whispered, Sophie, if I say yes, what changes? Marcus, everything. Sophie's chest tightened. Not because it sounded scary, because it sounded like the truth. And as she sat there on her couch, hand in his, staring into the calm intensity of Marcus Russo's eyes, one question took over her entire mind. Was she ready to let everything change, starting tomorrow? The choice. Sophie didn't answer him right away. She sat there on her couch, Marcus's hand warm in hers, heart racing, not with fear, with the weight of a decision that felt too big to rush, and too honest to ignore. Sophie, if I say yes, everything changes. Marcus didn't squeeze her hand. He didn't interrupt. He waited. Marcus, yes, but not all at once, and not without you. Sophie studied his face, the steadiness, the restraint, the way he never tried to push her past her own pace. She had met men who promised the world. Marcus wasn't promising anything he hadn't already started doing. Sophie took a breath. Sophie, I won't move in tomorrow. Marcus, I wouldn't ask that. Sophie, but I don't want to stand on the sidelines either. If you're going to say my name in that room, I don't want to hide. Marcus's gaze sharpened with something like relief. Marcus, you won't. Sophie, I want to be with you. I want to keep choosing you, just step by step. Marcus's shoulders eased like a tension he'd been carrying finally loosened. Marcus, that's all I want, step by step. Sophie smiled faintly. Sophie, you're very intense for someone who claims to like peace. Marcus, I'm learning. She leaned in and kissed him. Slow, sure, full of intention, not a promise of forever, a promise of honesty. When they pulled back, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. Marcus, tomorrow, I'll tell them I'm changing the structure. I'll tell them I'm stepping away from operations that don't align with where I'm going. Sophie, that sounds final. Marcus, it is for me, Sophie, and if they push back. Marcus, they will, but they'll adapt. Sophie's brows lifted. Sophie, because you're Marcus Russo. Marcus smiled faintly. Marcus, because I'm done negotiating my life. His phone buzzed again on the coffee table. Marcus glanced at it, then turned it face down without checking. Sophie noticed. Sophie, you're really ignoring them. Marcus, yes. Sophie, tonight is ours. Marcus, tonight is ours. Her chest warmed at that. The morning of the meeting, Sophie woke early. She lay still for a moment, listening to the sounds of her building. Someone walking in the hallway, a door closing, the hum of traffic, normal sounds, her life unchanged on the surface. Her phone buzzed. Marcus text, good morning, I'm on my way to the meeting. Sophie text, are you okay? Marcus text, I will be, whatever happens. She smiled at the calm certainty in his words. Sophie text, I'm thinking of you. A pause. Marcus text, that matters more than you know." Sophie sat up, wrapped in her blanket, and whispered to no one, "Sophie, you've got this." And she meant it. The meeting lasted longer than Sophie expected. She tried to distract herself, work, coffee, reorganizing a drawer that didn't need it. But her mind kept drifting back to Marcus in a room full of people who had known him long before she did. People who expected the old version of him. Her phone finally buzzed, just after noon. Marcus text, "It's done." Sophie's breath caught. Sophie text, "Done how?" A moment passed. Marcus text, "I said what I needed to say. I made it clear what I'm stepping away from, and I told them I'm building a different future." With me, Sophie thought, even though he hadn't typed it. Then another message, Marcus text. There was resistance, questions, warnings. Sophie's stomach tightened. Marcus text, but there was no negotiation. Her shoulders relaxed, relief flooding through her. Sophie text, "I'm proud of you." A longer pause this time. Marcus text, "I'd like to see you tonight. If you're free." Sophie text, "I'm free." A lighter man that evening, Marcus didn't pick her up in a black SUV. He arrived in a simple car, parked like any other man visiting his girlfriend after work. When Sophie opened the door, he looked lighter. Still serious, still controlled, but something in his posture had shifted. "Sophie, you look different." "Marcus, so do you." His eyes softened as they took her in. They sat on her couch, close, familiar now. Sophie studied him. "Sophie, so." Marcus exhaled slowly. "Marcus, I'm officially stepping down from daily control of certain operations. I'll oversee legitimate businesses and advisory roles only." "Sophie, that's big." "Marcus, yes. It also means fewer people watching me, fewer reasons for concern." Sophie smiled. "Sophie, and more room for a normal life." Marcus looked at her. "Marcus, a life with you." Sophie's chest tightened. She reached for his hand. "Sophie, I never asked you to change everything." "Marcus, I know that's why it matters." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of the day settling. Then Marcus shifted slightly. "Marcus, there's something else." Sophie's pulse picked up. "Sophie, okay?" "Marcus, I told them about you, and I told them you're the reason I'm choosing differently, and that you're not to be approached, questioned, or involved." Sophie stared at him. "Sophie, you protected me." "Marcus, yes." "Sophie, that must have caused reactions." "Marcus, it did, but none I can't handle." Sophie's throat tightened. "Sophie, Marcus," he lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles gently. "Marcus, I won't build a future that puts you in danger." Sophie laughed softly, emotion thick in her voice. "Sophie, you're very convincing." "Marcus, I'm very serious." Sophie leaned into him, resting her head against his shoulder. For the first time since this all started, she felt something close to peace. Weeks later, life didn't turn into a fairy tale overnight. But it settled. Marcus showed up consistently, quietly, fully. He learned Sophie's routines, her favorite takeout, the way she needed silence after long days. He helped her assemble a shelf without taking over, listened when she vented about work, actually laughed at Jenna's ridiculous jokes. Lily watched it all with narrowed eyes and a satisfied smile. "Lily, I don't trust easily, but he treats you like something precious, not fragile." Sophie smiled. "Sophie, that's exactly how it feels." Slowly, naturally, Marcus started spending more nights at Sophie's place. Not because he demanded it, because it felt right. One evening, as they cooked dinner together, Marcus chopping vegetables with focused precision, Sophie leaned against the counter. "Sophie, you know, you don't have to keep an apartment you barely use." Marcus glanced at her. "Marcus, are you suggesting something?" Sophie shrugged, trying to sound casual, even as her heart raced. "Sophie, I'm just saying you're already here a lot." Marcus studied her carefully. "Marcus, Sophie, I won't move a single thing into your space unless you ask me to." Sophie smiled softly. "Sophie, then I'm asking." His expression shifted, surprised, warm, deeply moved. "Marcus, okay?" The day Marcus officially moved in wasn't dramatic. No intense ceremony, just clothes, books, a coffee machine he insisted was better than hers. They rearranged the apartment together, laughing when things didn't fit, compromising on shelf space. That night, lying in bed beside him, Sophie turned her head and studied his profile in the soft light. "Sophie, you know, this all started because my friends dared me to kiss a stranger." Marcus's mouth curved. "Marcus, I've been thinking about that." "Sophie, anything to say about it?" He turned toward her, eyes warm. Steady, no longer guarded. "Marcus, yes, I'm very glad you didn't listen to reason." She laughed, resting her hand on his chest. "Sophie, me too." The question months later, on a quiet evening, Marcus came home with a calm smile. In a small velvet box, Sophie looked up from the couch. "Sophie, what's that?" Marcus sat beside her. Took her hand. He didn't kneel. He didn't need to. "Marcus, Sophie Collins, you changed the direction of my life without asking me to be someone I'm not. You gave me peace without demanding I earn it." Sophie's breath caught. "Marcus, I don't want a future that doesn't include you. Will you keep choosing me for the rest of it?" Tears filled Sophie's eyes. She laughed softly through them. "Sophie, yes, obviously yes." Marcus slid the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms, holding her like the world had finally aligned. Later, as they stood by the window looking out at the city lights, Sophie rested her head against his chest. "Sophie, do you ever think about that night at the bar?" Marcus kissed her hair. "Marcus, every day." Sophie smiled. "Sophie, one reckless dare." Marcus's voice was calm, certain, full of warmth. "Marcus, the best decision of my life." And for the first time, Sophie knew without any doubt at all. Love hadn't pulled Marcus Russo into darkness. It had finally led him home. And